On July 22, 2026, Ohio government activity centered on court rulings, administrative and regulatory actions, legislative announcements, and a few public meeting items rather than a single large statewide event. The clearest state-level developments in the available results are the Ohio Supreme Court's case announcement, the Ohio EPA's decision on data center wastewater permitting, the Ohio House announcement of a voting age resolution, and a Board of Building Standards stakeholder discussion on code amendments. 2346. Major government actions. The Ohio Environmental Protection Agency backed away from finalizing a proposed statewide general wastewater discharge permit for data centers, and instead said such facilities would need individual national pollutant discharge elimination system permits if they discharge wastewater. 3. Representative Tristan Rader publicly welcomed the decision, describing it as a move away from a blanket statewide permit approach. 4. The available result does not include the full permit text, but it indicates the agency chose a more facility-specific permitting path. 3.4. The Ohio Supreme Court issued a July 22, 2026 case announcement in Colts Neck Homeowners Assen v. Franklin Cty. BD of Commerce, holding that a homeowners association may challenge a proposed water drainage improvement project after county commissioners voted to move ahead with the plan. 2. The same day's roundup also noted a separate Ohio Supreme Court ruling that trial courts do not need to provide detailed explanations when denying post-conviction DNA testing requests, with the decision reported as 6-1. 3. Legislative activities. State lawmakers introduced House Joint Resolution 8, sponsored by Representatives Chris Glassburn of North Olmsted and Sean Brennan of Palmer, to put before voters a proposed constitutional or ballot change allowing 16-year-olds to vote in Ohio elections. 4. The result says the resolution would place the question on the November ballot, but it does not provide the full procedural status beyond the introduction announcement. 4. The Ohio Senate's On the Record page reported that Governor Mike DeWine vetoed HB 472, a bill that would have required a photo ID for absentee voting by U.S. Mail. 10. The Senate page also said the Ohio Senate completed the first veto override of the 136th General Assembly during its voting session that day. 10. The excerpt does not identify which veto override bill was enacted, so that detail cannot be confirmed from the provided result alone. 10. Administrative and regulatory actions. The Ohio Board of Building Standards held an AG 107 stakeholder discussion on proposed amendments to the 2024 Ohio Building Code, Ohio Plumbing Code, and 2019 Residential Code. 6. The discussion, dated July 22, 2026, covered amendments to coordinate with statutory changes for Type A and B daycare, reinstate language for consumer fireworks, and add provisions for boathouses and single-family-related code issues. 6. The Ohio Supreme Court's administrative materials also show that proposed amendments to the rules of superintendents had been approved earlier, on May 19, 2026, for publication and comment. But the provided document does not show a new July 22 action. 13. Because the user asked specifically for July 22 actions, that source is only relevant as background and not as a fresh July 22 event. 13. Enforcement actions. The Ohio Attorney General's July 2026 releases include a new Medicaid fraud enforcement case announced today against a former Central Ohio couple accused of 12 felony counts, an alleged $9.3 million fraud involving billing for services never provided. 11. The provided result does not make the date of the underlying conduct explicit, and because it is a July 2026 release page rather than a July 22 specific item, the exact connection to July 22 cannot be confirmed from the excerpt alone. 11. Public meetings and public events. A July 22, 2026 meeting of a Law and Ordinance Committee included an agenda item on noise/amplified sound regulations, with the committee proceeding through routine items such as roll call, open forum minutes, and new business. 5. The result does not identify the municipality, so the local government body is not fully specified in the available material. 5. The Ohio Board of Building Standards stakeholder session was a public regulatory meeting rather than a news announcement, and it focused on code amendments affecting construction and residential rules statewide. 6. Additional context from the day's news coverage. A Cleveland.com roundup on July 22 also highlighted several Ohio local developments, including the Ohio EPA's data center permit shift, food literacy bills for K-12 schools, Cleveland Planning Commission approval of a Superior Avenue bridge replacement, and other local civic and public safety items. 3. Those items are broader local government developments, but the provided search result gives fuller detail only for the EPA, the Food Literacy Bill mention, and the Bridge Commission action. 3. If you want, I can turn this into a strict chronology for July 22, 2026, or separate it into state-level versus local Ohio government actions.